The Vision High School Sports Beat is brought to you by the 12 locally owned dealerships of the Vision Automotive Group, offering Buick, GMC, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Hyundai, Kia, and Nissan. Check out all the selection at any location online at visionauto.com. Hello everyone and welcome to the Vision High School Sports Beat. I'm Dave Yates. Today we're going to do things a little different. We're going to dedicate this week's show to examining the state of Section 5 sports. Joining for this discussion is Paul Gotham of PickandSplinters.com. He's sitting here each week with the high school notebook. And Tariq Spence from the WDKX Wake Up Club. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Let's get started this show talking about Section 5 sports right now, how it stands. Tariq, how do you see the state of Section 5 sports right now?
Just a lot of excitement. They've implemented a lot of new changes that are great. Concussion protocol is great. They understand the importance of how many kids really want to play and staying active. The energy around it is fantastic. Every year, Section 5, we just got through basketball, Section 5 in the big house, and young kids are going to states and playing well. Girls, boys, it seems to be there's a lot more enthusiasm now with high school sports as there has always been before, and in all sports too. Lacrosse is big, soccer's big, basketball's big, football's big, hockey's big, so there's a lot of sports to be played in the area.
And not only is there a lot of excitement and enthusiasm, but our teams are doing well. Yeah. And I think you measure that and how they do when they get outside of Section 5. Certainly with basketball and soccer and baseball, we've had a number of teams that have advanced past the Far West Regionals and have gone on and been successful in the state Final Fours. Whether it's been Pittsford-Sutherland in baseball or McQuaid, or Fairport, there's been a lot of success with our teams.
Absolutely. Talk about that. Why do you think it is that once we get past the local into the regional and then the state level, our teams really do seem to excel?
I don't think there's any one reason, certainly, that you can put your finger on. I could point to a lot of things. I know if there's a Section 6 person who sat down here with us, they're going to say, well, we have a lot of our teams are divided up with the Monsignor Martin Association. So you have your private schools don't play in Section 6, which only works for a little bit of the argument. I think when you look at, I'm going to just take the sport of basketball aside. When you look at basketball and our success, we have a lot of great coaches. Yeah. We have a lot of great coaches. We have coaches who played at the Division I level and are now coming back and sharing their craft with the kids. And I shouldn't just limit it to Division I when you have a guy like Scott Fitch, who was Division III Player of the Year at Geneseo State. And it was now, oh, by the way, an assistant coach with the U.S. national team. You have those guys are coming back and teaching the sport to these kids and showing them that it's possible to play beyond high school. And when you have those goals and kids reaching for those goals, they're going to be successful on the court now, and that's proven out.
I have to say the off-season programs too. I've never seen so many kids start to say, okay, it's the end of the season, now what do I do? Maybe I go to another sport, maybe I don't, or maybe I start working on that off-season program as soon as the season is done, whether they want to do one sport or two. So the conditioning too has become, there's a lot more clinics now. Coaches and players are talking to one another about different clubs and ideas during the off season, and the kids have responded. They're playing more sports.
It's funny too, because you talk about that. I don't know, when I was playing sports eons ago in high school, you didn't know these kids from the other teams either, because there wasn't that like the club and all that, the travel teams. Now these kids all know each other. They show up for a game for their high school, they know half the lineup on the other team. Baseball or basketball or something like that. It's a different aura to it almost.
And sticking with the theme of basketball, a lot of these kids play on some of the same AAU teams, and then so they split up and go into different sort of leagues or different teams, but they can't wait to face each other, which is always great, which is good to, it keeps them competitive with one another, so when they combine as a unit, they know how to play together. So, you're seeing a lot of success, not just at the high school level, but even at the youth sports level when they're playing outside of high school. That camaraderie works, and you see them improve.
what's kind of interesting is when Mid-Lakes came up to play World of Inquiry in the opening round of the sectionals, you had the kids on Mid-Lakes and the kids on World of Inquiry. They're all teammates or play against each other. And here they are at the end of the game, kind of arm in arm at half court. Opponents, and I don't think you would have seen that, like you said, in the 80s.
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, Paul talked about the private school factor a little bit. We're going to get into that a little bit when we come back after the break. And welcome back. This segment of the Vision High School Sports Beat is brought to you by Dunkin' Donuts. America runs on Dunkin'. Paul and Tariq, we talked about it a little bit in the opening session there. Let's talk a little bit about the private schools, the Catholic schools. It's the New York State Public High School Athletic Association, but we've got private schools playing for sectional and state championships. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a competitive nature. Every once in a while, you have a school like a UPrep that breaks that mold. You have this high school team that just does extremely well. They're not in the private sector, so and they want to beat those private schools too. So it gives extra motivation. I know there's a lot of discussion of private schools and getting these kids and knowing these kids and trying to get them to go to school there so they can play the sport that they want to play. But these kids want to play the sport. They're really into it. I mean, at the youth level, you see a lot of kids that are playing soccer, volleyball, whether it's lacrosse or basketball or football, very early. They want to get into these feeder programs, and high school gives them a good education, gives them a chance to play, and put them at the next level of college. So, it's an opportunity. I know a lot of people can't stand it. They think they recruit them. It's a chance to beat them too. I like that.
Well, and an interesting note on this is McQuaid in the fall won the states in soccer, and then went to the semifinals in basketball. And both times they played Half Hollow Hills East. Now, I wasn't there for soccer. I was there for basketball, but several sources told me down in soccer, there's kind of an interesting note that after the soccer championship, they herd everybody, all the fans and the families, into the Middletown High School gymnasium there, and they give the coaches the microphones to kind of acknowledge everybody and give their parting thoughts. The Half Hollow Hills East soccer coach went on and told everybody that he brought his boys together before the game and said, doesn't matter what happens, we're the best public high school in New York State. All right? And they went out and lost. I think the final of that game was 6 or 7-0.
Right.
So they played like there was no motivation, like what you're talking about.
Yeah.
McQuaid, in basketball, lost to Half Hollow Hills East. And I think everybody there was of the thinking that McQuaid had met its match. So it's really, and it's back to the point that I was making before, two different teams from the same school with two different coaches and two different approaches. Yeah. And we look at a guy like Scott Fitch again. Scott Fitch doesn't hide from the private schools. Yeah. He schedules them every year. And I'm not going to try and speak for Scott, but actions speak louder than words. And I think that's his way of saying, I'm going to make my kids better.
Yeah, I've seen it before too, World of Inquiry Soccer. World of Inquiry Soccer's got, it's public school, kids go there, they play extremely well, they compete at a very high level. So it's, there's this sort of feeling of, it's not fair, it's always this school, it's always that school. They have down years too. So it's not every year that you're going to have the top-notch private schools winning every year, but it creates a great competitive balance.
And I think to your point, it is motivation for, if you've got a kid, you've got a team going against an Aquinas or something like that who's known this, they're the bar that you're measuring everything by. So if you can knock them off, that's, could be one of the highlights of your season. The coaching thing, talking about that, not the quality of coaching necessarily, but we retain coaches here. We have coaches that stay here for a long time, and I think that speaks about the districts and the community support and the kind of support they're getting from the kids too.
Yeah. We were talking off camera about the different coaching and philosophies, and some coaches not wanting other coaches to either let them play multiple sports or maybe go into different clubs, and sometimes it can be very competitive, but for the most part, to your point, they do stay. They do want to be in this area and see a lot of opportunities, whether it's through high school or college, to continue coaching.
It's no coincidence that Chris Carden has been at Irondequoit for over 30 years.
Yeah.
And they've won 2 sectional titles. Yeah. They've advanced to the semifinals 2 years in a row, which, by the way, I think they're the first Class A school as that designation in Section 5 to do that in consecutive years. And he's returning 4 of his 5 next year. So if he was a private school, everyone would be, going crazy about that, but that's not the case.
Well, I love it when we get a segue like that, and going into the next segment, we got one right there. We're going to talk a little bit about the travel teams and the athletes trying to choose between do I concentrate on one sport or play the multiple sports. We're going to talk about that a little bit when we come back on the Vision High School Sports Beat.
Came now to Eichel. He floated one. Score!
And welcome back, everyone. This segment of the Vision High School Sports Beat is brought to you by Wegmans. Wegmans is a proud supporter of Making the Grade, which highlights the accomplishments of Section 5 student athletes on and off the playing field. Well, Paul and Tariq talking about Section 5 student athletes, and let's talk a little bit about they're getting pulled a lot of different directions nowadays. I mean, you've got a kid who might be an excellent soccer player who has to make that choice. Do I play soccer year-round? We didn't have that. We were, it's like, what's your favorite sport? Well, what time of year is it? Football in the fall, basketball, then baseball, whatever. But now you got these kids, do I play at that elite level with a club, or do I stay with my high school team to play a sport that might not be my primary sport?
It's hard. I mean, I know I've run into a couple coaches that say, I want my kid to play whatever sport they want to play. Just be ready for the season when you're ready for the season. I've had some coaches that have said, I don't want my star athlete to be hurt playing another sport. It's a tough one, especially when they're the clubs where they're playing the same sport. One is all year round and one is seasonal. That's the tough debate. I mean, you'll have a lot of coaches who don't want, kids playing. They have to talk with the parent. The parent is kind of like, well, my kid wants to do this. So there's a lot of a balance there. It's very murky. You don't want, obviously anybody to feel as if, you're selfish and just want this kid to play on your team, but you also don't want to be in a situation where that gets around where you don't want a kid to just be able to have fun playing a sport. Remember, that's the most important thing, is that they may have an opportunity to get a scholarship, but they also want to play a sport that they love and a sport that they like at the same time.
If it's going to happen, it's going to happen whether you're playing one sport or 3 sports. And I'm going to get it out in the open. I'm a fan of 3-sport athletes. I think that's the best way to go. I realize he wasn't a 3-sport athlete, but I don't think we need to look any further than Chris Bostic, who was a football and a baseball player at Aquinas. And oh, by the way, he's now on the 40-man roster with the Pittsburgh Pirates. So it can happen when you don't have to specialize with one sport too early. And I think if you heard a bunch of guys in here and you talk to them about stuff like that, I think a lot of athletes would say they would rather play the 3 sports because they get to hang out with their classmates. And that's a very important part of it, the relationships you build there.
And that's irreplaceable. I mean, you're never going to get that chance back. But how much of that falls on the parent? As far as they see their kid as the next great thing, and they, if they're a great soccer player, I want them to play soccer.
Yeah, and then juggling in between whether they play club soccer or they play high school soccer, or they going, there's a lot of travel now. There's a whole bunch of opportunities for kids to be seen playing football, soccer, basketball, lacrosse, hockey. There's so many different ways they can sort of get on these different clubs, play with high school. They have the camaraderie, the team spirit of that. It's turned a lot more into a business the later they get into whether they want to declare for college or maybe, go play professionally.
I can't agree with you more. The camaraderie issue, I think, is a huge one for kids, because I do think if you talk to a lot of people who were forced to give up a season or 2, they would come back and say, I wish I had had that chance again to play with my former teammates.
I almost feel like hockey's been like that for a while, where the kids would make that choice. Do I go play for my high school, or do I go play for a junior team somewhere? Say, I know guys that their kids are playing in Syracuse. They're living in Rochester, playing in Syracuse, and they're making that commute to play for a team there or something, as opposed to playing for their high school. And now you've got that soccer, where soccer's like, if you want to play for this club, you're playing for this club, and that's it. That's all you're doing. And I feel like that's kind of, it's almost unfair to ask a 15, 16-year-old kid to make that choice.
Yeah, tough at baseball too, basketball. We've mentioned a lot of sports where they're sort of deciding, do I want to play high school? Do I want to play in this league that's a travel league that everybody's going to see me play. So it's tough, you know. I've run into a lot of people that have said the same thing. They want to play in high school, but maybe playing in these travel leagues are good for them, so they can get the most exposure and the most experience.
All right, hey, when we come back, more about this great topic, the state of Section 5 sports, right now on the Vision High School Sports Beat. The Vision High School Sports Beat is brought to you by the 12 locally owned dealerships of the Vision Automotive Group, offering Buick, GMC, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Hyundai, Kia, and Nissan. Check out all the selection at any location online at visionauto.com.
Haven't had a chance to talk about what happened yesterday before our game. I think for me, I speak on this stuff a lot. It gets back to, because it seems like there's a lot of signs out there, and a lot of people didn't step up. That's one of those things that I feel like you guys are leaders now. Like, you should be confident in yourself enough to step up if you see something wrong. And I feel like if someone did that, then maybe something doesn't go down. And so I just think that's something for us to take away. I think you always learn by experiences and what's happening. So.
I thought someone sent it to the FBI, like what he said on YouTube.
A year ago they did. Yeah, a year ago. Yeah, football coach steals like 6 people from bullets. How amazing is that? He was a hero. So when I heard about the football coach, that's right where my head went. Was think about that football coach, man, that stuck up. He saved 5, 6, 7. Who knows how many lives he saved? It's pretty incredible. So.
And welcome back to the Vision High School Sports Beat as we wrap things up on this very special edition. Talk about some of the great things you've seen this year so far in Section 5, and also, what do you think can make Section 5 even better?
Good things I've seen thus far. I think they're doing great things at the Bishop Kearney girls basketball. Kevin Shepard, coach, doing a great job. Girls have done a great job. They've rebuilt that program again. Things to change. The biggest issue, I think they've done a very good job of continuing the protocol. Concussions and injuries with kids have been a big issue. Making sure that we can improve the science for that. We have that here in Rochester. We have the ability to sort of help, kids play a little bit safer if they are hurt, get them back on the playing field the right way. It's been talked about many times, especially at U of R. So, making sure that, kids aren't pushing themselves too hard, being honest with the medical staff with them so that they can, remember, they're still kids, so they still have to grow and learn, and they have college and they have life beyond just playing high school sports. So that's what I'd like to see more improvement. I've seen it, and I'd like to see more of that going forward.
I can't say enough about that. That's certainly the concussion protocol, I think, is changing everything as far as that and the safety issues there. Great moments from the year. Terry Nowden at Yates Chili and what he did this year, coming back to his old school and bringing back that level of pride. It was great to see Yates Chili being mentioned among the competitors at the top of Class AA. It was great to see Keith Slack and Thomas Jones III, seeing those two kids play together for a coach, and you could really see how they were feeding off Terry's experience, his enthusiasm. And Terry is part of a coaching staff now that's coming around at Yates Chili. They want to bring back that program. Great facilities at Yates Chili, and it's good to see them having that success again and led by Terry. It's good.
And now with the spring stuff just getting going, it's another exciting time of the year for us.
Yep, as long as the weather breaks. we're having a little trouble with Mother Nature. I don't know how we get her on the Section 5 payroll, but for the most part, baseball, it's always fun to start off with that, and softball is always a lot of fun, and you're going to see sort of changes, and once again, we start heading towards summer and camps and clinics, and next thing you know, fall will be right back around again.
We have 8 or 9 baseball players that are playing Division I baseball this year, and I think we're starting to see with baseball, like basketball, we're getting a continual line of success with individual athletes. Again, it has a lot to do with the coaching. We have some great programs in the area that are helping out young players. And there are going to be some great games. It's probably going to take us until May before a lot of those teams are south of the Mason-Dixon line right now, getting in some games because they're not going to play here this week. May. And that's the thing. The spring season is so compacted, and it's already compacted at the start. But then because of all the rainouts with baseball becomes really a 2-week season for the regular season. They try to jam in all these games, and now that you have the pitching limits on all these players, it makes for an interesting, when you get to sectionals, you're not really sure what you have because some teams have lost games just because they couldn't put on the mound who they wanted.
Oh, they can't do double headers. That's unfair. It's not enough time in the classroom for that.
Off days are like gold. Paul, Tariq, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a great show. Thanks a lot, and pleasure having you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, of course. Well, we'd like to thank our sponsors, especially the 12 dealerships in the Vision Automotive Group. They make the Sports Beat possible. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you again next week with the Vision High School Sports Beat.